Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 2020 Lynk Co number 100 Cyan Racing 03. So yeah, this was launched at the World Touring Car Cup in 2019. It's the first Chinese car to be featured in an FIA championship, and it's been pretty successful. It got third place in 2019, it got first and second place in 2020, and it got first place in 2021, while Cyan Racing themselves were team champions between 2019 and 2021. So yeah, hugely successful touring car, to be honest, and yeah, considering it's from a manufacturer that hasn't really done much in the way of sports cars before. We have obviously had the 03 Plus, which we already have on this game, but even that has more mid-tier hot hatchback levels of power. It's not full on a sports saloon. So yeah, the fact that they've been able to make a racing car out of it, and not only that, also make a racing car that is successful, is really rather impressive. So yeah, I know I normally don't review racing cars on these kind of games, but it's because it's based on a road car that I really rather enjoy that I have given this racing version a look. So yeah, and yeah, it's stripped out as you'd expect. It weighs 2,910 pounds, which is 650 pounds less than the standard car. So as you can see, no carpets, no wheel dashboard, no nothing. It's just basic steering wheel and all the stuff that you'd need. You can't open the rear doors anymore, not that you'd need to because it's all full of roll cage. And even though you can open the boot, it's obviously stripped down, so technically still practical, but not like you'd want to put anything precious in there given the lack of carpeting. But yeah, big difference outside of obviously all the racing paraphernalia is the fact that it's got a more powerful engine. It's the same 2-litre inline-4 turbocharged engine that we saw in the road car, but it now produces 340 horsepower and 312 pounds-feet of torque. Now that's 89 horsepower more than the standard vehicle, and 54 pounds-feet of torque more as well. So yeah, more power, less in the way of weight, and with all of the aerodynamic tweaking it's had, far better in terms of handling as well, which is despite the fact that this is now only front-wheel drive. Yes, they've knocked out the rear diff to make it only front-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive, which is interesting. It's not something that normally happens when you get a racing car. It usually has more of something, not removing something entirely like that. So yeah, that is rather interesting, and no doubt that is where some of the massive weight savings have been gained, because you have one less diff at the rear and all of the other stuff that links up a rear wheel drive car, and therefore you're going to save weight automatically in that regard. What means in terms of suffering this car? Well, the launch isn't anywhere near as good. It's typical racing car launch where it's really rather difficult to get off the line. But then again, launch isn't really massively important in a race. It's 2-3 seconds of a few hour long race. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, overall, impressive amount of upgrades on this car, and yeah, that should hopefully pay dividends on the track. So let's get out there and see what this car can do. So yeah, this isn't really built for straight line speed. It's more about initial acceleration and cornering. So as a result, this is actually slightly slower at the top end than the standard road car. But then again, also it has all the aerodynamics and downforce that is going on, so no real surprise in that regard. But regardless, let's take it out onto the this drag strip and see how quickly we can go before we get the speed camera, and then we'll get to its natural habitat of the track. So yeah, like I said, this is pretty difficult to get off the line, so you have to properly rev it to get it off the line even reasonably well. But as you can see, it does wheel spin quite a bit due to having only front wheel drive, and obviously 340 horsepower is a lot to put for those front wheels. But it quickly gathers pace and gets everything sorted out. But as you can see, not particularly quick in terms of acceleration, only 126 there. But the point of the car like this is the fact that you can do that kind of speed pretty much everywhere, because it's got such good handling due to the aerodynamics and the extremely stiff chassis and the way everything's been set up. And talking about the stiff chassis, this actually can cock its leg if you corner hard enough. I think I've got it just about there. Yeah, you can see it's up in the air. That tyre is definitely off the ground. I can't think of any other car that, as you can see, does that in terms of the handling characteristics on this game. So that is a pretty neat thing that they've been able to do with this car as well. Properly show off how stiff the chassis is, which is always interesting, because like I said, I'm not sure if there is another car on this game that is able to do that. Maybe a hot hatchback is capable of doing that, I'm not sure, but yeah. It's pretty interesting to see in terms of handling characteristics that this game is able to simulate such a thing. So yeah, let's look at the stats before we get around this track. So we're right at the top of A class, no room for manoeuvring in this class, and yeah, it's a bit heavy on the front because it is only front wheel drive, so 62% at the front, 38% at the rear. But as you can see by the stats, outside of the launch, everything is reasonably good. The speed and the acceleration a little bit on the down low, but like I said, it's more about handling than anything else. But as you can see, handling and braking is excellent. So yeah, it means that you can drive this car and have plenty of confidence that it's not going to, you know, oversteer or understeer too heavily, or you know, just get too tricky under braking or anything like that. So yeah, as per usual, we'll take a listen to let you listen to the car for a little bit first, and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, with that 6-speed sequential gearbox, it's rapid in terms of getting through its gears, which is why, you know, with those short gears it doesn't have as high a top speed as the original car, and nor is it, you know, as potent once you get to a certain rate of speed. But still, as you can see, it's more than capable of getting around corners at a really decent rate of speed, and yeah, the handling is pretty much spot on. Typical of a racing car, though. I'm a little bit used to, you know, cars being not quite as responsive or as good in terms of handling, so I might well turn in a little bit too soon with a car like this, which is why I hit the wall earlier. So yeah, but in terms of acceleration, it's pretty good. 0 to 60 in 5.221 seconds, 0 to 100 in 10.9 seconds, and going to a top speed of 153 miles an hour. Now that is 10 miles an hour down on the standard car due to all the aerodynamics and downforce, but that is nearly 0.7 of a second quicker to 60, and nearly 4 seconds quicker to 100. So no, actually it's 4.4 seconds quicker to 100. Sorry, just doing my maths there. So yeah, that is pretty quick in terms of acceleration, and especially top speed for a car like this. Obviously it's not as quick as a road going car, but this can do that kind of speed while going around corners without any issues, unlike the road car. So yeah, overall an impressive enough racer. I would have preferred, you know, a brand new car to this game. It isn't just a racing version of a road going car we already have, especially in terms of Chinese cars. I would have liked something new from them, but regardless, as far as racing cars go, at least it is somewhat fun to drive and pretty potent in terms of its handling and braking to yeah, be a satisfying drive as well, especially when it comes to racing competitively. So yeah, overall a solid car, even if it is the only new car added to the game in terms of the entire Forza series via the festival players. We do have 3 other cars coming though that we haven't had in this game so far, but they are returnees from older games, unfortunately. But regardless, you can get this by getting 20 points in the current festival playlist. It is well worth getting, especially if you're into your races. But nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.